What is good, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to Milwaukee Entertainment News. I'm your host, DJ Bro. We are here with Eddie Martinez, saying, you know what, we got you on Rockin' Dockin', and what other projects are you a part of?
Well, I was recently in Category X. I was in that band for a lot of years, almost a decade. Kind of retired from the actual whole scene. I kind of walked away from it for a little bit, about 6 months, and then the Rock and Dockin' guys had contacted me, and they were having a hard time finding somebody to pull those parts off, and it was a little bit less of a strenuous schedule, so I decided to come back, and it reignited a passion, and so here I am. I'm also doing some original stuff I've been working on that I'm trying to get out there as well.
Nice, nice. How many? First, I believe you're on drums, right?
I am a vocalist, actually.
Vocalist. Andy Martinez, that was a drummer. Or, I don't know. I have a lot of
Andy
names mixed up right
Martin,
now.
Andy Martin is the drummer, who actually, ironically, Andy Martin was in Motley Brew with me back in the day. So, um, but he's definitely taller and has better abs than I do.
Hey, we can all get them painted on these days, right? You know what I'm saying?
I need a little bit of help, man. That's for sure.
So, you're down over in like the Chicago area or Kenosha?
I
Or?
I moved into the Racine area. I was in the Milwaukee area for a long time, actually. I'm originally from Detroit. So when I moved here with the band back in '92, I was actually living on the north side, more by the old T.A. Burns area. And eventually I got married and moved to the Bayview area. And I pretty much have been kind of Bayview, West Dallas area for a lot of years. Recently, was fortunate to be able to be in a position to buy a home. Found a great home out here and been out here ever since. The Rock and Dockin' Band is based out of Illinois, Chicago area, even though most of the guys are in Wisconsin. But we kind of pedaled out that way for a while, just because this area is a little difficult when it's a tribute band. Because it's such a specialized thing. It's more of an event when we play. It's not just kind of like going and seeing your top 40 or whatnot band. Um, so we spread it out a little bit more. We do play this area. But yeah, it made it a little bit easier for me to practice with the guys because they were in this part of town. And that was logistically a problem before. I work a lot of hours and busting your butt all day at work and then trying to hustle home and then having to drive 45 minutes each way. And especially in the wintertime, it's like, oh God. So it got to be logistically a little bit difficult. But now it's gravy. I'm 5 minutes away from practice and it's worked out really, really well.
Nice, nice, nice. There's actually low key. I actually saw you post not too long ago, talking about issues that people are having with cover bands. Let's go ahead and kind of like tack on that. What issues are you finding that people are having with cover bands, and what are the things that you see that people like more about cover bands and originals?
I think Well, when I first came here, I did all originals. Just, full disclosure, I was that guy that was like, I'm never gonna do covers. I was totally against it. I mean, because I was so confident that had my music not been given its opportunity, that maybe it had merit on its own and people would be covering my music someday. And we all had those visions of grandeur as musicians. Everybody thinks that they're going to make it early on. And so I wanted to pursue the original stuff. And I literally moved here with the band. I was living in the basement till I can get up on my feet, and support myself here. But I came here on a mission, and as life would have it, things kind of started getting away from music. You know, I got married and I was deeply in my life and had kids and took a break for about 5 years. But when I came back to it, it was because I needed an outlet. You know, I mean, I just needed an outlet. My kids were getting bigger, and I started going to some open jams, and I knew a lot of people locally. And we used to hit up Rooters. Rooters was in Waukesha back in the day. And, it'd be open jams. And I'd just jump up and I said, well, I'll just start learning some songs just so I could sing. You know, I mean, I didn't want to do karaoke. And people were like, dude, you should be in a cover band. Um, and I said, well, I want to do something. And here's the biggest problem with all original projects. It is that original musicians are all original music. They all have their own ideas, their own compositions and creations and how they want their music to go. And it's really hard to get everybody to be in that same frame of mind, creativity, and it's just hard. So, to get four guys on that was just difficult. And, with the cover band thing, it's like, hey, we're gonna do this. And if it kind of fits in what you're into, it just made it easier to get into a project where I could actually perform you know. And even though I was a creator and a writer, I'm also a performer. So I was like, hey, I'm just going to do this. And hopefully one day, I'll be able to get back into the original stuff. And so that's kind of what I did. I got into some, uh, cover stuff and then I did the original stuff. There's definitely pros and cons to each one. I obviously, because of the way things are in this town, there's a lot of competition for the entertainment dollar. There's a bar on every corner. Wisconsin is known, when I first moved here, you had your spaghetti Wednesday, your fish fry, your chicken on Saturday. People are very, consistent, and when it comes to what they get for their buck, they want the most that they can get for their buck. I mean, that's just how they are. So, uh, the all you can eat fish fry. So here in town, when it comes to entertainment, it's kind of the same way. And so getting the people in the bars, you got to have a draw. And what is the draw? Well, you got these really accomplished cover bands that clearly are they're excellent in what they do. They're great. I mean, when I moved here, I was like, wow, look at the talent in this town. It little to this day, it blows my mind because there's a lot of guys that are in these cover bands that could tour nationally, no problem. They could grab, somebody could come up and grab, hey, I need you to come on. And there's guys here that could handle that, no problem. So I was like, hey, I'm in. The original stuff is hard, and it doesn't matter how good you are, it takes a little bit more work. So the guys that are more dedicated to it, um, and I guess have had the prior connections that enable them to, inject their original ideas and still have a platform. Those are the guys who are successful. Black Belt Theater, they have history in this town. Those guys are super accomplished musicians, and what they do originally is great. It appeals. So they were able to inject their product into this scene and still draw. But, there's guys out there that are creating original music right now that are phenomenal. And had they been given the chance, they could still be doing that. So I'm hoping that we start to see a little bit more of that injection of some of these guys that we know there's quality musicians out there. How do we get that platform to get them out there? That's the question. Look at Lines of Loyalty. I used to see those guys in a bar, and it'd be like at Paulie's, and now they're on tour with Mudvayne, and they're killing it. Or I think it's Mudvayne. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but whoever they're on tour with, or it could be Seven Dust. The point is, they're making their mark with their music, and they're a local product. And now everybody's like, yeah. But you know what? We need to get people to be in the bars going, yeah, before, not after the fact, you know, because then we look like bandwagon jumpers. Everything is a cycle, um, and I think it's just a matter of time that because of the level of technicality that it takes to do this genre of music, and that's not taken away from other genres, but I mean, typically when you look at the most accomplished players, they're almost always, in a rock sense, the drummers and the guitar players and whatever, because they reach a level of technical prowess. It's kind of built in, where, it's just a little bit different in my opinion.
Yeah.
But I think that it is a cycle, and I think it's coming back around, and I think that the more that it does, then you're going to see that resurgence, and you're going to see those types of bands, being sought after again. But right now, me personally, after basically doing this for almost 35
Yeah.
years, I'm actually doing my original thing, and it was more of at this time in my life, it's more I want to get it done bucket list kind of deal for the family and everything, and I felt that I had a good core chunk of songs that's never been heard that I've written with other, local musicians and whatnot, that I wanted to, bring them up to speed. And after getting the first couple of them done, holy shit, man, I am like just really excited, um, because they are taking on a whole new life, um, so yeah, I'm kind of balancing the best of both worlds right now. I got them both going on. I'm hoping that when I do get the original stuff done, that either my current band, Rockin' Dockin', will embrace them and we'll either incorporate them into our set here and there, or I can create the Eddie Martinez band and start pushing them both.
Hey, that has a ring to it. That has a ring to it. You know.
I've been doing it for a long
Yeah.
time.
I kind of really think you touched on it earlier when you said the demographic they're trying to reach, and things coming back around in the circle. Grew up listening to things like Dokken and Bon Jovi and all those types of bands that there's a lot of cover bands of.
Well, I'm a little older. I grew up more with Bob Seger and Alice Cooper.
Right.
But yeah, that obviously I went through that phase as well, and we're doing the tributes
Right.
and stuff. But yeah, I'm old school, man. I grew up with the Jackson Fives and Elvis.
There you go.
Uh, that was big in my house. We used to watch the Elvis movies when they came on in the 4 o'clock movie, and they had Elvis week. So I may be showing my age a little bit, but yeah, my influences are far beyond just the metal,
Yeah.
for
You
sure.
definitely touched on it when you were saying that, because that's the type of music that the older generation was listening to back in the high school. Then y'all popped out
Hmm.
with us. I'm 32. So y'all popped out with us, and then you dragged us to all the different shows and the different festivals. And guess what they were playing at all those different shows and festivals? Those bands, that music. So now that
Right.
we're older and we have our own kids and we're bringing our kids to the festivals, guess what? They're still playing the same shit that was
Yeah.
popular when you guys were young. So, like,
Yeah.
that whole full circle of, yes, we're tired of the cover bands now. We'd like to start seeing originals, but people don't really know what they want. They do like the cover bands. They're just wanting to see the stuff that we grew up listening to now. We want to hear more, more recent metal, or more recent rock, So it's like,
The 2000s is 25 years
yeah,
ago, and I think they're still are still thinking like 19. Like when their thought process, it starts with 19.
yeah. It's
we're in a whole new
Right.
millennium, you
And,
know.
and and it does start with the
I
generation because we sit back and say, well, we like to see more of those bands, but look at the people out there gigging. They're all 40s and up.
right,
You don't see people my age out there
right.
gigging. Why? They're probably too busy playing video games or something. I don't know. But
There's a gap. I do see a gap, but I am starting to see a lot of younger players even being injected into this scene. Just this past weekend, you know, you had Pop Riot, young lady on a guitar, killing it, you know, with some veterans of the scene, and that's cool. I like to see that, you know, because it shows the level of respect that we have for these kids that are coming up that are amazing, and at the same time that they respect us enough that they feel they can get on the stage and rock and roll with us, and it's still cool. You know, I was really happy to see a project like that come about. Um, you know, it's kind of like Ozzy. Ozzy always injected some, you know, youth into his stuff, and it took him to a different level each time. And yeah, I think that's pretty cool. I do see a lot of the younger kids coming out doing some of this stuff, which is it's encouraging, you know, that they still, you know, that there's still hope for kids to, you know, not be so distracted by their phone and all these technological advances. I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff about it, you know, with how Lincoln Park incorporated a lot of these tones, and um, but there's something to be said about a Gold Top Gibson, you know, uh, something to be said about the tone of John Bonham's drums. You know, that's why people still gravitate to that type of music at these festivals over and over and over, is
the
because
vibe.
you have a timeless melody in most of those songs. You know, they were anthemic, but at the same time, you know, it's hard for people to remember, and you know, some of the beats and the grooves in some of the genres of music that are out there now, because it's just not, it's more of a, I don't want to demean it at all, but it's more of a gimmicky, I should say, and I don't mean that in a demeaning way. It's just the technology, Whereas somebody in the back in the day, it's like home sweet home. I mean, you're gonna remember that for the rest of your life. You're gonna remember running with the devil. It's just it's a such a memorable melody. It's timeless, I mean, and that's why the Beatles are still so huge.
Yeah.
It's timeless melodies, and I think that's why some of that stuff comes back, because there were some great songs in that genre that even in the rapping genre, they sampled the hell out of it, because it's timeless. Walk This Way, perfect
Yep.
example.
Eminem did Crazy on You. Like Lil Jon did Crazy Train. Like they
Yeah,
sampled all. Even now,
and,
like the hip hop
and
now is
those
starting to
songs
hit
are
sample the
fantastic.
hip hop from back then because we miss it.
Yeah, the songs are great, even though they use those samples, from an already proven song. But what they did with it, it's great, because you're just showing creativity. And to me, I'm all about that, and I think, like I said, when people say no, that just drives me nuts. It just does. If I was in a band called Shinola. And it was one of the first cover bands that I'd put together, and we played everything. Our philosophy was, if it rocks, we're gonna rock it harder, and it didn't matter. We would take songs, make them our own, and we played everything from the Who to Prince to Ozzy to I mean, it's all kinds of stuff, and people were like, "Well, we're trying to figure out how to label your band," and I'm like, "Well, why would you do that?" You know, we're playing something for everybody in the bar. If somebody in the bar is 18 or they're 50, sooner or later they're going to hear a song that they like. And it was a while ago that we had that idea. And now I'm seeing bands and they're doing that. They're doing that same thing. And it's cool because it's, there's too many formulas out there where, back in the day, you guys do Mustang Sally, and I know that became taboo. Um, it shouldn't get to a point where any song ever becomes taboo. You
Right.
know, it shouldn't. It shouldn't. You shouldn't be that predictable. I don't care how good you do it. I think a lot of that, the negative stuff that I hear about cover bands is like you see the same bands and the same stages and the same festivals over and over and over. I gotta agree with that. I gotta agree with that. And it becomes like, I mean, if I went and looked at the bands that were playing at a lot of these main stages at a lot of these festivals, it's pretty much set in stone. And hey, these guys are out to make money. It's about the bottom dollar. Those guys worked hard to get to that point, you know, to get to where it's no question we're going to hire them because they're going to bring in the people. It gets frustrating for the people that have not got to that point, but you can't get negative about it because they worked hard. Perfect example of that. And I'm a name dropper because you know what? The names that I love these bands. I love these musicians. These guys are solid. I mean, to me, I love the scene. Almighty Vinyl. They were called Stone Ship Eden back in the day. They used to play the small clubs. They whatever. They went to the church festival stuff and they paid the money to get in the booth. And then next thing you know, they were on the side stage of the church festivals and they worked and they worked and they worked. And they are, in my opinion, one of the top bands in the state, if not the top band in the state. And they deserve it. They deserve it. They rehearse regularly. You can tell they don't. They're pros. So you can't take away from them. You know. That it's just the way it is. You work hard. We reap what we sow. You know what I'm saying? Some of us get lucky with some of our connections and whatever, but you can't take away from those guys. Those guys, all those bands that get those tier A positions, it's because they deliver the goods.
There's a lot of bands that deliver the goods and don't get the recognition that they should. Especially
Yeah,
people within the bands, where it's all like, okay, yeah, I mean, this guy may not be great, but that guy is a fucking animal, and
yeah,
yeah, that kind of is disheartening when it's like when you're those guys and you're watching the same people at the same festivals, the same people win Whammies, the same people doing everything year after year when you've been grinding hard and harder and harder, just as probably even harder than some of the big people
it,
did. So it's like,
it does.
what do you have to say for the people that have been grinding so long and been doing the work and putting in the work, but still not getting it like some people do? And I'm not name dropping anybody because there is so many different bands that are out there, and same as you, I got nothing against any of these guys. All these guys are awesome. I love watching all of them, but there are some good guys out there that deserve some recognition too. Is what I'm on.
I, I got when it comes to uh, all of it, you just got to be patient. A lot of us feel deserving of it, and point being, it took me almost 22 years to get on a Summerfest stage. There's people out there that have never played on a Summerfest stage, and it took me 22 years to do it. And then I was doing it every year. I got to open up for Sticks and whatever. It's awesome. Uh, you just got to be patient. It is a frustrating thing. There's still a lot of bucket list stuff that I feel, deserving like everybody else. I would say that, um, hopefully, with some things that are happening locally, with the scene in general, as far as a concerted effort to kind of get everybody on the same page, I'm hoping that maybe we can get some kiddie pools. And that's a crazy analogy, but we can get some kiddie pools where people can learn how to swim and get a chance at some of these opportunities to kind of prove their mettle, because I think that's it. I think if you did a little bit more of that, um, and expose some of these people, uh, to and I mean the crowd and the people that are looking at this entertainment, expose them to some new talent. I think it would maybe just inspire people to get out more, instead of the same old. Because you know, if people are like, wow, there's a new band stage, separate or whatever, because these festivals and whatever, they've got multiple stages. So one thing that I thought was cool was like that Rebel stage that used to be at Summerfest. You had this one little stage, and they got you into Summerfest. It wasn't Summerfest, but you got to play Summerfest, and it was a place to kind of get that type of exposure. And it was always one of the most coolest stages in Summerfest because there'd be some kick-ass bands playing in there, and all kinds of music. I mean, just all kinds of music, and they'd have a crowd packed all the way in the concourse, deeper than some of the main stages. And so that just showed me that there's a market for it. There's a spot for it. We just need everybody to just kind of pull together and kind of say, um, let's figure out a way where it's not just about, oh well, we gotta pack them in here, otherwise we're gonna close our doors and do that, that fear thing that you're not gonna have any place to play. And and then the band's got to be a little bit more willing to work too, and not be like, hey, I'm this major rock star and I've got $10,000 worth of gear and you got to pay me X amount of dollars. you know there's got to be a way that we can work this out, and I'm sure that's right around the corner. I think we're finally getting to the point where uh, there's going to be some conversations,
Yeah.
and I think it's going to be for the better. I'm optimistic.
Awesome. We do have that town hall tonight, and this isn't going to air until after that. But so it's like
Sure.
I was thinking, it's like, should I ask thoughts now or nah? But
I don't have any thoughts because I don't have enough information as far as where they're going with it. I mean, there was a couple of things that were said early on that kind of led to a little bit of of an explosion of more curiosity. So I'm going to hold off on any opinions as far as that goes. I will say, um, kind of a little bit of what I just said. Obviously this is a financially based situation that felt the need to pull everybody together, because I'm hearing, yeah, we got to do something different, otherwise these bars are going to close their doors, and there's not going to be any place to play. So that when I hear that, well, then it's about the bottom dollar. So I'm just concerned that when this meeting takes place, and it's taking place between musicians and whatever else. I'm just concerned that when it's all said and done, that nothing comes from it, because are these vendors, are they really gonna change their business model because somebody said something at a town meeting? I mean, are they gonna really take what we say seriously enough to change their business model? You know what I'm saying? That's a legit question, because if not, they're telling us this is about the bottom dollar. So I don't understand what's going to come from this meeting. So I'm really curious, because that's kind of like what I'm wondering. It's like, what do you want from us? Because the band's already, kind of, we're already struggling, and we're just musicians. We're just trying to get out there and play our music. And there's a lot of times I feel that, like, we're always treated like, we owe something to play, like you owe us to play. And well, wow, man, I just want that to change. I don't want to feel like we got to continue to kiss the ring to play out someplace, you know otherwise they're closing down and there's not going to be any place for you to play. Well, I don't believe that. I don't believe that. So I don't think that should be even a part of that conversation. I'm hoping that this is more open to, okay, how do we do this to where let's make it a little bit better for everybody, or we're gonna not have to worry about closing our doors, and at the same time, you guys are gonna have more opportunity to do what you want to do, and that's play. Seems
Yeah,
legit, right?
yeah. That is a you brought up quite a good few points in there, and it's when you're talking about a bunch of businesses that are getting together thinking about that. They already have a tavern league that they're already a part of. They already have these meetings once a month that, together, for a lot of these places, and bands, you guys know that, if you're, that you guys, I'm sure are in connection with a bunch of other cover bands to where it's like, okay, what are you guys doing? So we're not doing the same song. So, I mean, it's like everybody already does work together in some kind
Right.
of aspect. So I
Hmm.
mean, it's I'm hopeful
I don't
as
think we're
as
too
well. I
far.
just didn't like the information that came out at first, the way it was presented, and I think
Yeah,
neither did
I
any
think
of the
that
people
part.
involved because that got a lot of people
Yeah,
mad. Like it's
right.
the posts should have came from whoever was heading this, not from a podcaster. That really
The
should have
town
been
hall.
somebody that, was really heading it that should have presented it because I believe that the way it was presented
That's it.
was
You're what you're
was
saying,
was bad.
right? And when you're going to have a town hall, well, why do you have a town hall? It's because you have a proposal. So if you're going to have a town hall, it means you're proposing something and you have an audience and you want their feedback. We had no proposal. We got some misinformation out there that was like whispered in the Johnny's ear, went into the Sally's ear, went into Billy's ear, and next thing you know, we're talking about Game of Thrones Part 9. It was like, whoa, it got really crazy. So yeah, if there was an actual, if they had an idea, you know, and like, because they kept saying, well, you'll hear it at the meeting, which alludes to me that they have a concrete idea, but they didn't want to get too much into it online because it would be too open for blah, blah, blah. But that means that they have a concrete idea, some kind of whatever. So that proposal, that idea, should have been summarized in a sense to kind of give us an idea of what the town hall was going to be about. Because what they're saying it's kind of vague, you know and then so with just the little things about, well, we need to change, if we don't do nothing, it's going to be the end of the world in a sense. Well, that's why it got where it got. So like I said, I'm optimistic. I think a lot of people, because of some of the misinformation, that whole thing started to taste bad. But I think that this is a good move, um, because it just shows that they care. You know, if they didn't care, they would just be like, "Hey, you know what? We're going to start cutting you guys' prices and this and that," and they would just do what they're going to do,
Right,
right? I mean, it's their they can do whatever. So I have to take this as a sign of like, good, that hey, look, we're going to bring you guys in. We're going to pick your brains. I mean, is it going to change the business model? I mean, if I had my own business and I worked really hard for it, it's going to take a lot for people to change that alpha mentality. Like, this is my business.
right,
You know what I mean? Uh, but you never know. Somebody might have an epiphany tonight. I'm hoping for that.
right. Um, let's get into more of you. How did you get started in bands? You came from Detroit with a band, but
Yes, yeah,
yeah,
I
but
did.
why
I did.
why
It's
why'd
it's
you
kind
choose vocals?
I was a roadie in a friend of mine's band way back in the day, and I knew all their music. I would always sing along with their songs, and I just felt that I had a pretty good voice, but I just didn't have the confidence to get out there and start. doing anything until a friend of mine had approached me, and he was trying to learn guitar at the time and stuff. So he'd be like, "Oh man, just come on over," and we'd hang out, and he'd be playing his guitar, trying to, and I would be singing up to it, whatever. And a friend of his popped up one day and heard me singing, and he's like, "Hey, I'm in a band. We need a singer." So he asked me to try out, and I did. Went and started jamming with him, and we were covering, ironically, Dokken and stuff like that way back in the day. That's what was going on back then. And then I ended up getting a call from a drummer. His name is Scott Harris, and he was in an all original project called Silent Scream. And they were looking for somebody to come in and write some lyrics. And I was looking to get into an original project. I really didn't want to do the covers back then. So I was all over that. They sent me a couple of demos, like two or three demos, and I wrote to them and recorded it on a little old school tape deck, like literally like the old square ones, and with the cassette tape. And I had just it had the built-in microphone on it. It was the most horrible recording ever. But they called me back right away after I gave them the tape, and they were like, "Oh yeah, yeah, you got to come on down." So I had no equipment. It was crazy. I had no equipment. I went to this music store, rental store, and it was far. It was almost an hour drive. I couldn't find any place that had anything that I could afford. I was kind of poor when I was younger, and so I found this place, and they rented me this. It was just the craziest thing. It had like three sliders on it, and this crazy speaker on the bottom of it. It was powered. It must have been from a church from back in the 30s or whatever. But it had some volume to it, so I was like, okay, I'll take it. It was like $15 a day. Because I'm gonna rent this thing for 3 days, man. So went and drove out, and this was out in Ypsilanti, Michigan. It was in the middle of nowhere, and it was weird. It was like I'm driving down like country roads, and then it was just like old brick garage type building off the side of the road, and that's where we were practicing. And we ended up writing like 10 songs. And the guitar player, his wife was originally from Milwaukee, and her parents lived here in Milwaukee, and him and his wife had just had a baby. So we recorded all the stuff, and then found out that his in-laws that lived here, his wife's parents, they were getting up in age, and they were like, "Hey, come and take our house. We're gonna go into an old folks home, and we want to spend some time with the baby." So they gave him a house. So he was like, "Dude, I'm out of here." He was living in a mobile home in Ypsilanti. Well, I couldn't blame him, and I was bummed. I was like, "Oh man, the band's gonna break up." And so he told me and Scotty, he's like, "You guys are more than welcome to come along." The bass player at the time, he was a fireman in Detroit. He wasn't going anywhere. But we both were like, let's do it. Let's do it. So we came out here to visit, and Summerfest was going on. And he's like, "I'm gonna take you guys to Summerfest," because he knew all about Milwaukee. He had been here. The guitar player was his dad was a signed country musician. He was a very talented guy, and he had a lot more experience than I did. So took us to Summerfest, and then me and Sky looked at each other. We was like, "Yeah, dude." So I moved out here with a Honda Civic, a cooler, and a TV, and all my clothes. That's all I
Hell
had.
yeah.
I built a life here, man. I got married. I've leased a restaurant where I had my own restaurant for a little while. I've run several businesses, and I've been in countless bands. But that's how I got started. I came out here, and we played all kinds of places, and we connected with a lot of the original bands from back in the day. I met Michael Shawn. Was one of the first people I met when I moved here. Him and Jackie Taylor from the Cherry Pops. I've known those guys pretty much since I've been here, literally 30 plus years. And got to meet them and started opening up some shows with Such Is Life, which was Mike's band back then. And just played for a few years, and then just the whole original thing died out. That's when I started getting into the cover stuff. But that's how I got my start in it, though. And I always knew I could sing. When I was younger, I was in school in the choir, and I played clarinet when I was younger, and I always knew I had music in me. But I was a late bloomer, so when I finally got the confidence to get out there and do it, people were like, "What?" They're like, "Eddie's doing what?" Kind of blew some people's minds, but here I am.
Right. What was some of the bands that when you first started coming out here? What was some of the bands that were big on the scene that you just like couldn't wait to work with?
Oh man, well, Such as Life was up there, and then Picasso Trigger. We never got a chance to work with those guys. We worked with the Deja Groove, and Six Pack Floozy was another band that we worked with back in the day. Um, there was a few decent bands that we had worked with back in the day, but um, we were pretty much doing our own thing. So because it was original, I kind of just wanted to try and build our own thing, because I didn't want to be. It's real easy to be subliminally, screwed up by being around other people when they're writing and they're doing their stuff. It's just so we were writing a lot back then. So I didn't want to be around other people because I didn't want to pick up on their writing and their musical habits. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. That's just me. So I tended to be like, let's just open up for a couple of bands that we know, and then once we get big enough, we'll just kind of get on our own. That's kind of how I was looking at it. Like, it wasn't the greatest idea
Right.
in retrospect, but I just wanted to create our own style. And when we came here, it was like there was a lot going on, man. It was like
What year
the
was it?
scene was 92. Yeah, there was a lot going on, man. There was a lot of big bands. You had Bender and Picasso Trigger and Doc Hammer, and yeah, I mean it was just a lot of big bands, and that's when the Laser Stage was
Laser
happening, and
103.
yeah, and it was real tough, So we played at some of the smaller places, because we couldn't get into some of the bigger places. Like we played the Globe, and
Globe East and West.
we played and South. We played them all. Ian was a cool guy, man. He actually has booked a lot of my bands over the years in all his
Is he still
places.
doing stuff?
Uh, I know he was supposed to have invested into something in West Allis, and I don't know if he was still a partner in that. Um, I actually ran into him not too long ago and saw him. It's been a while, but I haven't seen anything come to fruition from the one that he was supposed to be a
Right.
part of. So
I know
who
when you come
knows?
into a new scene, you run into, well, even if you just literally just grew up and you're coming into a scene, and it doesn't matter if you moved here or not, you get stonewalled a lot by the people around you, and it really just takes like one or two people that you end up meeting that go, hey, don't worry about them here, I got you, play here, like. So cool thing about having a name dropper here is because some people don't like it, they're all different types of ways. One cool thing is I get to have you shout out the people that brought you into the scene when you first got here and that really helped you get your leg up.
Oh man, I got like I said, Michael Sean was actually the very first person I met when I came out here. As far as in bands, we hooked up with those guys, and then in that band, Tony Lentz, who's in Imperial Fall, he's like a brother to me. He's lived with me in my home. And I mean, there's nothing I wouldn't do for some of these guys, man. They're literally my family. Um, I would say, as far as like helping me along, though, Mike's been a big help. Um, from back in the day, Paul Gorotowski is another guy back from King of the Clubs. He used to help us out a lot, booking Shinola with his band. Um, There's been a few kind of hard to think off the top of my head from way back in the day of like who actually really got us going. Deja Groove was another band. So Eric Sherman, I remember he was the bass player in that band. He used to help us out a lot. Steve Kenzora and all the guys in the Killer Clowns. Love those guys. Awesome guys. Very helpful in the scene, and give you the shirt off their back. And that's the cool thing about it is there's a lot of people like that. It would be hard pressed for me to just list just a few. I actually had a golf outing that I was running for about 7 or 8 years for all the local musicians, and it was for charity. And you know, it was awesome. We get about 75, 80 of the local musicians all together to play golf. Um, you should have seen the golf club when they seen all these rock and rollers walking around in the club. It was hilarious. But all those people, that were a part of that, I mean, they've all been a great help. I mean, the guys in Six Pack Sammy, and I can just go on and on. The Cherry Pops, Foreigner Forever, Tom Hunter. Tom Hunter, that's another brother. I mean, he's like family to me. Um, all the guys in Foreigner Forever, super, super cool guys. Um, and then Bellevue Suite, all the guys in Bellevue Suite. That's another huge band. I've supported that band. Jeremy Jason, who's just like another like a brother to me. And I look up to those guys because I've seen their hard work, and I've seen where it's got them. And it inspires me to work harder. And when you're in a situation where there's just so many people that have talent, it's gonna be tough to get picked when it comes to dodgeball.
Right.
It's like there's just so many out there, man. I mean, Tommy Roach and man, I can just go on and on and on. Pete Siren from the Whammy Bar and back then, and Smoking Joe's.
Smoking Joe's.
Those guys, yeah, those guys, and they helped my bands out so much. I can't even tell you, how many times they helped me out. Matt Danbeck, another solid dude that's just has been a very cool mentor to me. In the jamming with them, and just in general. Just there's a lot of good people in this town. There is. Eddie Smith, bass player in Category X, another guy that I hold in very, very high regard. Look at him like a family member. And it says a lot that when you leave and you move 2 states away, and you basically have nothing, and you can create a whole new family. It says a lot about the people. That they make me feel that I can trust them, and they're like family to me.
Yeah. What's some of the highest points you've had when you realize, holy shit, this is happening?
um, I would say Summerfest was one of them. Um, it was kind of cool because we had an early slot, and we got there a little bit early. It was like a 5 o'clock slot that we had or whatever, and we got there a little early. It was my first time ever there, so I was a little nervous. And come to find out that the people that had the slot before us, it was like a battle of the bands winner. They didn't show up, and so the stage manager was like, "Hey, you guys want to do another quick set?" I was like, well, yeah, so we were scrambling. I put together a set of songs that we weren't going to do in the other set. And we got out there and started playing, and I kept on pushing and saying, hey, we're going to be doing another set. And I kind of explained what was going on. So we kind of walked off the stage, and then when we came back, well, I guess people heard and was saying whatever and talking. It was packed. I mean, it was all the way down to the concourse by the lake. I was like, you got to be kidding me. There was
They all
thousands of
hit up their
people out
friends
there.
like, yo!
And I was like, this was great. I had, I mean, that was what I had envisioned in Summerfest. Earlier on, it was cool. There was a couple hundred people out there, but that was like, okay. So to the point where, like, when we got done with songs, it was like, like, like a concert. So I was just so stoked. Um, that was one, and then we played the PB and Jam out in Kenosha, and it was a crazy gig. It was on a Thursday, and it was an all-day thing. So early in the day, we played a set, and it was really nice. It's out in Veterans Park out there by Kenosha, and there was quite a few people out there. It was a pretty cool gig. They had school buses out there, and people were dancing and everything. And then we had a setup in the middle of the day where we were going to go and do an interview on the radio, and then come back and do an evening set. So we go and we do our interview and everything, and we come back. We could change our clothes and whatever. Same thing. We came back, there was probably 4 or 5 thousand people out there. It was just everywhere you could look, there was people. I was like, this is insane. This is awesome. So anytime you get that, that's been the biggest rush for me, where it's like awesome. Um, I've had some amazing moments on stage, but I would say that those two really stand out because just that amount of people. It's been few and far between where I play in front of that amount of people.
Yeah, always a rush when you start to see the place fill up. It's like you peek around that curtain, you go, ooh.
Yeah, that kind of turns it on for me. I when it comes time to bring the A game, and I see that, and the Lord has blessed me. I've always delivered. I had a pretty good streak of shows until COVID. I had literally almost a 30-year streak that I had never canceled a show, and so I mean, to me, when especially when I see something like that, I'm like, okay, it's on. Now this is what you do. That's what you work for. I mean, all the practice and everything. It builds up for something like that. It's just such a payoff. I mean, when you're looking out and you got people singing the songs and they're smiling and they're having a good time, and you can see them all the way out there. Yeah, that's awesome.
That is. There's no you spend the rest of your life chasing that high again. It really isn't,
Yeah,
man.
I try to explain it to
It's
people.
a drug.
I'm like, you just don't understand that. It just puts you on a whole different level. You're literally electric.
Yeah,
you're you're so fired up that I mean, there's got to be some instrument out there. If they put it on you, they would read it. There's got to be a different aura you're putting out because it's just that energy, dude. It's just insane. It is. It is. It is a drug. It
yeah.
is.
Um, where can people find all of your stuff? Because you mentioned you got quite a bunch of stuff that at your going on. So Rockin' Dockin' and your side projects, your personal stuff. Where can people find everything of that?
Well, Rockin' Dockin' we have our own webpage. It's at rockandockin.com, simple enough. And that kind of gives you all the info of our upcoming shows and anything, that we've got going on in there. Um, we are in the process of doing an EPK and going to put some new material on there so it looks a little bit more up to speed. As far as for my personal stuff, I'm on Facebook right now. I do have a YouTube channel. I have all of my stuff going through DistroKid, and the first single, "I Just Don't Give a Damn," is actually on all platforms right now. So that's on Spotify, iTunes, iHeart,
And then
all
look
that
up Eddie
stuff.
Martinez
Uh,
or
Look up Eddie Martinez. I Just Don't Give a Damn, and that single is out there. That is the teaser single for the album Soul Speaker, which will be out in February. I'm hoping. I'm having that all done at Cherry Pit Studios. Eric LaBrosse is working his magic for me, and I'm just so excited. Um, just got done doing all the tracks for the second song, and got the mix this morning, and yeah, I'm happy, dude.
yeah,
So it's gonna be killer. There's some bangers coming up, and I got some really just super talented people playing on this album. I can't say it enough. I got on the first song, I got a couple of guys from Foreigner Forever. I got Tom Hunter and Greg Hornke from the drummer. I got Ken Gore from Addiction playing bass. And then on this upcoming song that I just did, I've got Brian Boley on guitars, who I used to be in a band with called Monster Island back in the day. This guy's phenomenal guitar player. He's in A Tortured Soul, and I mean these guys, their stuff's all over Germany, you name it. Um, he did a phenomenal job with this song. This is a song that we wrote back in the day. We bring it back to life, and then I've got Cody Zook on the bass, who was in Conniption. This guy, oh my God. I mean, the talent on this song is nuts. I got Ben Boswell on the drums from Master of Puppets. So it's a super group. And I mean, I wish I could pay these guys $1,000 a night just to be my band. I mean, in the studio, I'm just
When
like,
you get the right
holy
people
moly.
together, and
Oh,
I
man.
remember Brian Bolet. He was I believe he was the original guitar player for Theatira.
He was in Victims of Voodoo
Yeah,
too.
that was with Tyler
Yeah,
Florence. Yeah, my
correct.
my
Yeah. And then he was in a band called Bent. Um, and yeah, he's an amazing player. Um, Good friend of mine, and I was so happy that I was able to get him to be a part of this project and bring this song back. It's so kick ass, bro.
yeah.
I'm
Yeah, it's
telling you.
crazy. I don't even know if
Yeah.
you've made the connection that because I look just like him. My dad was from Theatira. That's Alan. That's Theatira, Stuntcock, Sugar Camp. All those. That was him.
Oh, yes, yeah. I never put it
Yep.
together, bro. Holy shit. Yeah, I mean, all those cats. I remember all of them
Yep.
dudes, man. Yeah, I used to jam with Brian in a project called Monster Island with his brother Dwayne. And we put together an EP that it was yeah, we recorded it. It was basement recording or whatever. But we ended up getting a couple of the songs on a Hard Knock Records compilation from back in the day. And then I think they wanted to go a little heavier, but they kind of missed the boat because they were heavy like Pantera, and my vocals are much more clean and upper level. And this was back in the early '90s. Now that's what everybody's doing. You know, it's like we were way ahead of our time. It's like, oh my God, we missed the boat on that one. But that's what I kept on telling them. I'm like, dude, this would be like Pantera and Dream Theater combined. And yeah,
Low key.
back then everybody wanted to be heavy. They were going on the heavy, and my vocal tone's a little bit on the mellow side when it comes to that stuff.
Yeah. That seems about what we got for today. Shout out to Eddie Martinez and Rockin' Dockin' and everything he got going on. Make sure you follow everything he's doing on his YouTube channel and he's Distro Kid, just any platform. And in the meantime, till you see us again, don't do anything I wouldn't do. And if you do, name it after me.